All right, let me continue this intercommunication time between clients and server, which we call it IPC, inter-process communication time. Looking at this example which I did last time, showing that there is a message going from client to server and from server back to client. It's an echo server. Let's follow up this line from the start. Here I will say now this is at step number 1. Actually I'll write the word hello. It's coming from the out, so I write this hello into out. Out is my variable which is on the client. It's my output. This is the output stream. This will be connected to the client socket. Client socket will take this data and send it all the way to the server socket. This is step number 2. Step number 3, the data will be read from the server socket right here through the N, which is the input stream connected to the server socket. So that's third step. Fourth step now will go the word hello to out, which is the output stream on the server. So this is the fourth step. Now fifth step will come down to the again to the server socket, so that I will transfer it through from the server socket through the communication line here to the client socket. This is step number 6. And step number 7, this is step number 7, the data will be read from the client socket into the N. So this is my total round trip, out to client server to the server socket, I mean client socket to the server socket to the N goes back to out to the socket now server socket to client socket, and then to the N. This is the complete cycle for the echo server. Now we can take this actually further. This is what I've done last time, where I showed the actual inter-process communication from the, this is how it goes. This is my client right here, and actually let me color it so you can see it again. Let me do it with green, and let's make it thick so you could see that. So this is my client, this is my server, and it is, again, it's thick. Okay, so I assume that the distance between client and socket is about 1000 meters. So there is and the server is at port 4450. That's the port 4450 here. That's the blue oval on the server side. And the server actually here is not localhost because it's 1000 meters away, so I'll have to change it to some IP address. Actually this should be some IP address. Okay, so here again it's an IP address. The reason it's an IP address because I just said it's 1000 meter distance here, so they are not on the same server. So this is the time now, which will go from the client to the socket to the server. Server again takes it from the N to the out, and from out back to the client, and there is an N. What goes in this time, in this whole issue, this round trip from T request to T end, which is T request minus T end, what's there, or T end minus T request, this guy here. What's included in this? There is the total time, there is 2 times T communication, there is a T communication plus, which is this is the T communication, this the red and the yellow line, this line right here and line. So actually there are 2 times, so I multiply them by 2, this 1 plus times 2, and then there is processing time. There is a processing time here, which is, this is my processing time between from the time I receive it to the socket until the time I get it here. And of course there is some processing here, there is some processing here to read the data, there is some processing here. All of this is included in the service time. So now there is one thing we should mention, that this T total, this time here, which is the T end minus T request, this is the T total, it better be equal or less than the TCP session. Now TCP session, actually when this guy here starts sending data or sending the request to connect, it waits until the response, which is connection request, accepted. Now this is a TCP session from T request to T end, this time right here. All of this is, it has to be whenever the client sends a request, it will open the TCP session. Actually the TCP will send this request. So the TCP, which is the Transport Control Protocol, it has to be up and running, it has to be alive when this request comes back. If for some reason the TCP session has expired, then this request, the blue line, the response here, will go unnoticed. Let me explain this one more time. This is important. We start a new slide right here, just explaining the TCP session. So let me do the this is my client. This is my green client. Make it thick so we can see it. Okay, now I need to, I have my socket here. Now before actually I do this out, whenever I actually, let me be very specific. This is my out. So my out variable. Okay. This out variable, which I will put in it the, let's say, equal some x. I want to send x here, and I want to send it to the socket so I can transfer it. This time here we say the client, I will do something else. I will do this guy. Here I will say client opens TCP session. Okay. So here the client opens TCP session. Now TCP session means the transfer control protocol will access the socket, will take control of the socket and will say, now I am sending, oh, I'm sorry, this is not out. No, I have to, this is the, okay, let me do the out, but I'm not writing here in this out yet. Sorry. First, I want to open a TCP session, meaning I want to request, which is here, So let me do something else here. Request to connect, which is actually what we said in new. Remember, we said this is the new. When I say new socket, now from this time on, the request will go this is the request to connect. So the request to connect goes here. Okay, and then there is a slight delay here. What is that? Now this delay, this is actually it's TCP delay. It's TCP delay on the server. This TCP delay on server side. Okay. Now once this delay is done, I will send the response or accept. So accept. This is the same socket, of course. Now note that here there is I will call it TCP process here. See, there is a delay here. Now, at the time when the response comes back from the server to the client, the TCP session, which I opened it here, this TCP session should do the processing and accept and take this accept signal and see this accept signal and actually close the session. Here, after that, I will have this small and here I will say close. Actually, we do it this way here, like this. That's much better. I'll say here close TCP session. Now, assume for a second and let me call this T begin, T start, I'll say, or T0, and this time here T1. Assume for a second, let's say T1 minus T0 equal, let's say, 500 millisecond. Let's say it takes 5. Of course, it doesn't take that much, but let's say it does for now. And assume that TCP timeout, TCP session timeout equal 300 millisecond. Assume this is the case. Now, if this is the case, it means that the TCP, in this case, TCP expires before accept message is received. What does this mean? It means that by the time the accept message is received here, by the time the accept message, there is no TCP to close the session, or the TCP, no TCP to process this statement, which is the accept statement. So this will be failure, connection failure. Now, why is this connection failure? It's because the TCP session expired. Now, assume, let's take the other scenario now. Assume that the TCP session is 600 millisecond. TCP expires after accept session is received, connection success. The reason I want to emphasize this is because sometimes you may have a program that's perfectly working on one system, and you take this program, you port it to another computer, out of a sudden there is a failure, and you test it, you keep moving it from your first computer to the second computer, and you don't find a problem in your code. Then you check the TCP configuration, you go to the TCP IP configuration, and you find a timeout, and you increase this timeout session, and then out of a sudden everything works. So this is one type of failures that the systems have. So you have to be careful when you see the request to connect and to accept. Your socket communication time is taking longer time than the TCP session, or the TCP session is shorter than your time, then you have to do some configuration. Usually, if you are working on the local host, this will not be visible. However, if you are working across across a distance, then because the client and the server may be located, let's say, as I said, oh no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this guy here, make it thick, and make it dash, and so this is, let's say, 10,000 meters, which is, let's say, 10 kilometers, or actually I want to say it's 10,000 kilometers, going all the way to the 10,000 kilometers, that's 10 million meters, or 10,000 kilometers, let's say. Okay, 10,000 across the ocean. So this is a very long distance. The signal goes back and forth long distance. Now this will be clear when I do some bit more calculation. So I'll stop right here, and I think I will stop right here, then I will do the next lecture, which I already have that in my previous video, but I want to do it even more.